I am the Ascended Master that you have known as the Great Divine Director. I am, as some of you will know, a cosmic being, which signifies that I hold an office in hierarchy that is beyond one planet. I do represent the flame of divine direction for Earth, but I represent the same flame for many, many other planets. Not by any means all planets in the universe, but many more planets than you can truly imagine with a linear human mind and its use of numbers. This signifies something to you that I am not so concerned about conditions on earth as the Ascended Masters who work only with earth. I am not thereby saying that I am not interested in earth. I am indeed. But it is not my exclusive area of concern, and therefore I am not as close to earth in vibration as the Ascended Masters who work specifically with this planet. This signifies when I do have an opportunity to speak through a messenger in physical embodiment, I come with a higher energy. I release a more powerful energy than you would normally have released in an Ascended Master dictation. Thus you may hear that the messenger's voice has trouble carrying the vibration because it is significantly higher than what he is used to from other masters. Let not this trouble you, and let it not trouble you if you feel in your own chakras that there is a certain intensity that you do not normally feel. This is a result of the fact that you are being asked to be the intermediaries, the open doors between a much higher vibration of my light and the much lower vibrations of planet Earth. This is not an easy task. It is not easy to hold the balance where you are, so to speak, in between two worlds, experiencing both the world you normally experience of Earth, but then the higher vibrations of my presence. The light that I am is so intense that were it not stepped down by other Ascended Masters, by those who are working with the earth, then it would indeed be a force that would burn this planet, and this would not be constructive. Even though it certainly would remove darkness, it would also remove people's sense of continuity, and this, of course, is not what we desire. Thus, Saint Germain, my own student, is indeed stepping down this light so that its vibration is not too high to accomplish the purpose that he envisions needs to be accomplished for Europe as a result of the work you have done at this conference. Truly, I am the one speaking, but the release of the light is stepped down and directed by Saint Germain, who is intimately familiar with the conditions of Europe, having been embodied on this continent several times and being allowed to step beyond the veil as an Ascended Master and work with the recalcitrant kings of those past centuries, where he attempted to unite the people of Europe. I therefore put before you the question, What is Europe? It is, more than anything, an idea of unity through diversity. Not in spite of diversity, but through diversity. We have told you that there was a distant past where the inhabitants of the earth had created a downward spiral because they were so alike, so in conformity, that they reinforced the mindset that prevented them from growing. This was a very distant past, and I do not want you to think that the continents of the earth looked the same then as they do today. Nevertheless, the landmass that is today the European continent was the main landmass at that time where the primary civilization of the earth was located. And thus you have, on what is now the European continent, these energetic records from that distant time and that distant society. What do you then see manifest in Europe today? You see so many different groupings of people based on all of these outer differences and characteristics. Why has Europe become such a melting pot? Because it was necessary to bring so many different people here to break up these old records of conformity. Look at how the fallen beings who have embodied on the European continent, and of course the fallen beings who have controlled them in the higher realms, have attempted to create unity through sameness by forcing people into conformity. Back in that distant age when the descent of the planet began, no one was forced into conformity. They came voluntarily into conformity. And those who did not come into conformity ascended from earth. So those that were left were in such conformity that they created the downward spiral, but it was through their own choosing. So what the fallen beings have attempted to accomplish in Europe is to get people to again come into conformity, but this time through force, by making them the same. And this has been counteracted by the fact that so many different people have been embodied on the European continent. They're trying to force some kind of conformity in Europe is, as the popular saying goes, like herding cats. And so you will see that all of these different people have been deliberately gathered here in order to prevent the fallen beings from turning Europe into a society so trapped in conformity that the downward spiral could not be turned back. You have seen some nations in Europe where the people have been willing, at least the majority of them, to come into conformity under some strong leader or some strong ideology. In a sense, you could say that most of Europe in the Catholic era were in conformity around the church. But even greater conformity was achieved in Germany during Nazism and in Russia during the Soviet times. Still, there was not total conformity. And this was indeed because there were so many different peoples embodied on this continent. Why then was this necessary, you might ask? Because it was necessary in this age that those life streams who were embodied when the descent of the earth began were given a similar initiation as the one that led them into the downward spiral. It was similar but not the same, in the sense that this time they were brought together from many different backgrounds and therefore had so many different characteristics that they were not as uniform as they were back then. The other difference was that this time they were allowed to be affected by the fallen beings, both to give them an opportunity and to give the fallen beings an opportunity to overcome their past momentums of conformity. And so you may look at Europe during the past 2,000 years as a giant initiatic process for a certain group of life streams. They are being given the same opportunity again, only it is not the same because the universe and even planet Earth has moved into other spirals. Therefore, nothing can ever be the same, even though the people and their state of consciousness have not changed very much since that previous age. Still, cycles have changed, and therefore the initiation is slightly different. What you saw Saint Germain attempt to do was to get the kings, the leaders of the time, to see beyond their own personal differences and come into a form of cooperation that could have united the nations of Europe, not under one physical leader, but under a higher form of leadership. Had these kings responded, and not all of them were fallen beings, it would have been possible for Saint Germain to guide the leaders of the European nation for the last several centuries. This, of course, did not come to pass, and so the plan has now shifted to where Saint Germain is no longer addressing the leaders, but he is addressing the so-called common people who, after all, are not so common because you are spiritual beings in embodiment, and you have considerable attainment in freeing yourself from your own egos and thus becoming the open door for that which is more. The plan then is still to unite Europe, not by making everyone the same, but by making you embrace and accept your differences. Do you perhaps see, those of you who have been here physically for this conference, that even though you have all selected yourselves to come here because you resonate with the teachings of the Ascended Masters, you still have outer differences from your nations, from your families, from your culture. But despite these outer differences, you have come together here, and you have not been threatened by each other's differences. You have not gone into the oh-so-common ego game of seeking to force other people to come into conformity with your way of looking at life so that you can feel validated and not threatened. Instead, you have looked to a higher vision, to a higher principle, a higher purpose, namely the Ascended Masters, who are truly your own older brothers and sisters, or we might say that you are the extensions of the Ascended Masters. So when you recognize this, you can see beyond the outer differences, and they are still there. You recognize the differences. You can also come to value the differences because they give different perspectives. But you also see beyond